By Congressman Tom Cole. Congressman, good to see you again. It's been a while since I've talked to you. The Trump team is going out of its way to distance itself from this Texas nonprofit at the center of the controversy. This is, however, the exact type of pay-for-play scheme that Donald Trump accused Hillary Clinton of during the campaign as it related to the Clinton Foundation, and it's exactly what people who are worried about. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I think they've done the appropriate thing. Look, if there's a question here, then it's best to pull back. They seem to have done that. And look, I cut them a little slack right now. They're drinking from a fire hose with the transition going on in inauguration. So I'm pleased they pulled back, and I look forward to them continuing to, frankly, be careful in this area.
There are reports out that the Trump team is now considering a half-blind trust for Donald Trump's businesses that would allow members of his team or his family to continue to draw income from his companies while he's in office, and possibly some members of the administration. Where do you stand on this conflict of interest stuff? The emoluments clause is pretty clear. That's constitutional. But the conflict of interest clauses that govern you and other federal employees don't cover the president. So what do you feel about it?
Well, first of all, I think you have to remember Mr. Trump is new to having to deal with these sorts of things. And to be fair to him, you know, he's not a guy that made his money out of doing business with the government particularly. So I want to see what he actually announces. I want to give him the opportunity to do that. I think they're trying to be careful in this regard. And you do that if only because you know your opponents will try and put the worst aspersions on anything that you happen to do. So I think, again, this is going to be a probably continuing controversy. But I don't expect the family to get out of a family business, for goodness sakes. I mean, you read much history. George Washington was still pretty active managing Mount Vernon when he was president of the United States. I'm not suggesting the president-elect will do that, but I don't expect his family to get out of something they've all devoted their lives to.
It's an interesting analogy, because sure, George Washington wasn't. Back then, most of these politicians were not full-time. They were farmers, or they were landed gentry. Jimmy Carter did have to get out of his family business.
Well, you know, each politician that's successful in private life is confronted with these sorts of things. I think President Carter, I don't know if he had to get out. He chose to get out, and I respect that decision. But, again, this is a little bit different. The scale of the enterprise is obviously much larger, and you've got family members that are involved in it, capable of running. It's not a public entity. It's a privately owned corporation. And I don't see any evidence that the Trumps have ever particularly profited from engaging in government activity. I think their big challenge is going to be so many people are going to want to do business with him.
Whether he has or hasn't, I mean, most people don't. I mean, even it's not about him being in profiting off of government activity at this point. It's about him profiting from being the president of the United States. That's very different, right? You can land a lot more deals because you're the relative of the president of the United States than you ever could as a developer.
That's absolutely true. On the other hand, I think the president-elect said that they weren't going to be making any new deals while he was president of the United States, and I take him at his word on that. They were going to be operating an existing company. So, again, I understand the concerns here, and I think they're legitimate, but I think the president-elect and his family are legitimately trying to deal with this. Again, it's no mystery. We all knew he was a businessman when he ran for office. So let's give them an opportunity to tell us exactly what they're going to do.
Let me change gears on you for a second. We were just watching Donald Trump's press conference, or his discussion with the media from Mar-a-Lago, and over his shoulder, Mike Flynn was standing there. The Southern Poverty Law Center has released an investigation examining 1,700 of Michael Flynn's posts on Twitter. They found he followed a couple of individuals who used the hashtag white genocide. He praises and interacts with figures who are considered anti-Muslim. You worried about that?
Look, I haven't read the tweet, so you always want to look at the evidence before you comment too much. But look, Michael Flynn served his country with great distinction. Probably the most successful intelligence officer of his generation, working with General McChrystal, basically broke the back of the terrorists in Iraq when he was in charge. So this is a guy that got a lot of respect for, given his track record. If he's made some mistakes, hopefully he'll get those cleaned up. But again, this is a guy that served the country well, and obviously someone the president has great confidence in, and frankly, the president's allowed to choose the national security advisor that he thinks can help him the best.
Congressman, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Allie, thank you.
Congressman Tom Cole.